Hi, this is Lori, and I am going to take a few minutes to walk you through Administrative Law Introduction Topics for Chapter 1. Administrative law, in a nutshell, is really about the laws that govern or define the power, the limitations, and procedures of administrative agencies. One of the objectives of this semester is for students to understand where and how administrative agencies get their power, what they can and cannot do, and then how does that administrative agency carry out the powers that the agency has been enabled to do. That is why we are going to look or review the Administrative Procedure Act. We will look at some case law and even discuss how constitutional law impacts the debate around administrative agencies. So, sources of administrative law. And by sources, I mean where does the law that empowers administrative agencies, where does that come from? And one source is the U.S. Constitution, and that's because in America, every law, every rule, every regulation, every case law must be in compliance with the U.S. Constitution. So at no point can an administrative agency use its discretion to exceed the power that is granted in the Constitution. The major source of an administrative agency's power is through an enabling statute or enabling statutes. An enabling statute is enacted by a legislative body for the purposes of giving power to an administrative agency. And in my presentation of an administrative agency, where I show you how to, when I provide you a sample of how to complete that project, I share with you an enabling statute that enables the Illinois Department of Agriculture, because that is one of the objectives of your assignment, is to find the enabling statute relevant to how an agency receives its power. This is crucial because administrative agency is not a branch of government established in the U.S. Constitution or by the U.S. Constitution, which means it has to get its power from from one of the branches of government. And so it is the legislative branch that will decide whether or not to enable or how to enable an agency, and it will be the president or the governor that will appoint the head. Another source of administrative law is the Administrative Procedure Act that was established to provide uniformity on the process that governs what administrative agencies can and cannot do. Do not confuse that with the procedures that within the rulemaking power of an administrative agency, what those procedures can be. And this, in terms of procedural, the focus of your textbook, I should say, the focus of the Administrative Procedure Act in your textbook will be federal law, but this does extend to state law. And then executive orders will extend also to administrative agencies. So that's going to be a source of their power. Whenever you think the source of law, think what is the source of the power that a person, an entity, actually has. So the question should be, or the thought maybe should be, why do we even need agencies? I mean, we have the legislative branch, we have the executive branch, we have the judicial branch. Why do we need all of these agencies? And if you looked at the link that I provided for the state agencies and the federal agencies, you know that in our country we have hundreds of agencies, which is probably what people are discussing, or I should say political pundits are discussing when they mention big government. They're really saying, what's with all these agencies that are telling us what to do or what not to do? So one of the reasons that we need administrative agencies is because Congress, or in Illinois, the Illinois General Assembly, and the courts can't handle it all. Congress can't handle regulating toxics and pollutants in the air or in the water. I mean, look at what's going on in Michigan with their water. Congress can't decide what is toxic, how to regulate that, how to test it, how to penalize for it, or punish for it. So they need help in doing that. So, and our court dockets are tremendously heavy with other types of lawsuits that, just imagine if the types of issues that agencies resolve were also lawsuits before our circuit or district courts. It would just be too much. The issues on how we live our day-to-day life really is way too broad to think that the three branches of government by itself could handle that. So the nature of enabling agencies to do that gives them the right, them being the agencies, to create regulations and then adjudicate issues arising out of those regulations. That then decreases some of the necessity of lawmaking for Congress and the litigation before the courts. Also, agencies provide expertise. The good thing about establishing an agency is that they are usually staffed in terms of the higher ups with the expertise in those areas. Congress, and we know very well, Congress does not necessarily always have that kind of expertise. So agencies can provide the expertise that's necessary to work on the issues that those agencies are unable to resolve. And I'm not going to spend much time on this, but one of your review questions asks you to really review the historical context of how administrative agency law grew from basically to little of nothing to what we have now, and particularly the Administrative Procedure Act that is necessary, that was used to uniform administrative law. Think about your roles of agency. We have social welfare, regulatory, and public service. An example of social welfare could be the Illinois Department of Children and Family Services that provides benefits and services and sometimes cash to assist families with social issues that arise. A regulatory agency, you can think of OSHA or even the EPA. A licensing agency, you can think of the Illinois Attorney Registration Disciplinary Commission that license lawyers. Public service, you can think of your law enforcement as an extension of public service, Department of Homeland Security. So agencies play different roles with respect to their purpose and goals. There's two of the three branches, two of the branches are most influential with respect to administrative law, and one would be the executive branch. I do have the president here, but the governor for the state falls under this as well. And the nature of the executive role is that office can recommend reorganization and amendments to the enabling laws that empower administrative agencies. And issue executive order, but they play a role in appointing the agency heads. So that's also the balance of powers, the checks and our balances in our branches of government. The legislative body enables an agency, and then the executive branch appoints the head of that agency. I mentioned the legislative body on more than one occasion. That is where and how an agency is created, or more importantly, how they are empowered through the enabling statute. And that is done under the theory of delegation. Congress is given the authority under the Constitution to legislate laws. The Constitution did not give that to the IRS or the FDA or the FBI or OSHA or the SEC or the EPA or the EEOC. And I can go on and on and on. It is Congress is delegating their authority through an enabling statute to empower an agency to carry out the very laws that Congress enacts. And that's significant because the nature of our government is supposed to mean that we, the citizens, have some say in what occurs in our government. So it has to, the power of an agency has to arise out of an enabling statute. With that being said, the enabling statute can give agencies lots of power. What they cannot do, under modern day debate, is give the power to agencies to incarcerate people. That still seems to be a very protected right in our society, that physical liberties is something that the 10 amendments, the first 10 amendments to the Constitution focused on, and will constantly be protected in our society. So agencies will not be given the power to incarcerate individuals. With that being said, the power of an agency, or within each individual agency, they have a right to pass rules and regulations. They have a right to enforce those rules and regulations. That's your executive branch. And they have a right to have hearings about those rules and regulations. So in the Illinois Toll Authority, the board legislates or enacts some rules and regulations. The state troopers are part of that executive carrying out those rules and regulations, and the hearing officers are the adjudicative part of administrative or of the Illinois Toll Authority. So those are the powers that each agency actually has. And in doing that, each agency is also granted discretion because they need discretion to carry their job out. So, for example, the Illinois Toll Authority will maintain discretion to pursue violators after 3 violations rather than waiting for 5 or initiating an action after 1 violation. That is at the discretion of the toll authority. Where they lack discretion is how much to fine a violator. So the statute requires a $20 fine and then a $50 fine per occurrence. The toll authority or the hearing officer cannot change that and cannot waive that fine. So that's an overview of the introductory topics for Administrative Law, Chapter 1. I think you will find that this addressed if not all, most of the questions under your review questions that I told you would be the subject matter of your exam. And if you have any questions or comments, please contact me. And make sure you check Blackboard for other course materials.